What to do when the complaints don't make sense? This is a question that we all find ourselves asking now and then. So what do we do? Well, it's time for some critical thinking. We're working on a 2001 Dodge pickup, and up until now it has had no problems. Here's what we found.
His complaint was that he had a lot of lights illuminated. He had the ABS light on, the airbag light on, the speedometer wasn't working, the blower motor wasn't working, the window motors weren't working. It's been my experience whenever you have multiple systems involved, it usually leads to an electrical problem. That's what this one turned out to be. We want to show you how we found it and what the fix was in case you run into it.
So it's electrical. That means we need to look at the diagrams. But before we do that, let's confirm the complaint.
First thing we're going to do is confirm his complaint. So we're going to start the vehicle. There's no dash lights on to start with. But when we start it, of course you have your bulb check. Airbag's on, ABS is on. Of course the seat belt, because I'm not wearing one right here. We're not moving, so we can't verify the speedometer, but we're going to take his word for it that that's not working either. So shutting it off, we're going to go back to start with. The first thing that's probably the easiest for us to check. His complaint was that the blower motor wasn't working and the window motors weren't working. To confirm part of that complaint, we've got the blower motor on and it's not working. I'm going to go to the windows, and the power windows are not working either.
Multiple unrelated problems, right? Well, the first question is, what do these complaints have in common? If you notice, they have nothing to do with the engine or the engine control module because it is running just fine.
So we're going to go to the blower motor fuse, which is right over here, and using the power probe, we test the blower motor fuse. We got ground and ground on both sides. Now that should have power. The power windows are controlled by a circuit breaker, so we're going to check that. We pull it out. We have ground and ground. No power to that either. So before we start checking everything else, we know we got a problem there and no power to that circuit. So we're going to go to our electrical diagram and see where that power comes from.
The blower motor gets its power from the blower motor relay. Following the diagram up, you see that it's fuse number 2. Now notice run A22. What that means is this circuit is powered up if the key is in the run position and it is circuit A22. So the A22 is referenced in future diagrams. Likewise, you'll see that the power windows are powered up through this same circuit A22. So this run A22 circuit is our problem. So we need to find out, where does it get its power from? So as the diagram shows, run A22 gets its power from the ignition switch. Now study this diagram closely and you'll see the ignition switch in position 2 powers the circuit A22.
Looking at the wiring diagram, we see that the power there comes from the ignition switch. So we've gone ahead here and taken the panels off that we can get to so we can test that. And one thing I want to tell you, it's a mistake I've made many times too when I first started. They've got some type of a aftermarket alarm system in here. And it's easy to say, oh well, somebody who installed that made a mistake and that's what the problem is. Truly it could be, but I'm not so sure we should jump to that conclusion right away. So we wanted to just assume that that was okay and rule out the other things first. So when we take the panel off here to expose the ignition switch, which is a pretty easy access down here, almost immediately we could see our problem. This one wire has been pulled out of the ignition switch. When we take that wire and plug it right in, you can hear our blower motor start. We pull this wire out and it goes off and our windows don't work again. So obviously this is feeding that part of the circuit. What I also want to do is plug this in so the blower motor's working, and then come up and see if it took care of my ABS problem and my airbag problem. So now with our wire plugged back in and the blower motor working, we're going to start it And you can see our brake and airbag and ABS lights are off. But if I happen to reach down there and pull this wire out, the blower motor will stop. ABS light and airbag light will come back on. So clearly this is the problem. Okay, so in order to make this repair, we're going to use our terminal tool probe and push it in here and push that terminal connector out of the wiring connector. Now you can see the problem with it. The wire just broke off of the terminal connector. So we're going to repair this, put it back in there, and we should be good. Okay, to complete the repair, we took the connector out, crimped the wire back in it, but to make it even better, we're going to solder it together. We've got this little device that's kind of handy, helps you hold the wire and the connector in place, get it all lined up, and then you can use your soldering gun. Make a nice little soldering connection there. Then you're ready to let it cool and slide it back into the connector. Everything should snap back in place when it's in correctly. Another thing to be careful here is make sure that there's enough slack on that wire so when they turn the tilt steering wheel, it won't pull that wire out again. When you turn the key on, blower motor works, start it up. Lights go out. Window goes up and down. Everything's fixed. Now we didn't use the scanner on this. I knew there were going to be a lot of codes, but you do need to get your scanner out and clear all the codes after this repair because all those circuits were involved and I can guarantee you there's going to be codes in the computer.